Hi, today this is Carole at Rocking Horse Farm, and we're going to show you some bind offs. And this is the Latch tool bind off that Jason will show you.
Okay, I'm right-handed, so I'm going to stop on the right because I want to use the tool on the right. I unthread the carriage. I'm going to hold the fabric near the sinker posts or near the machine and pull them all out. If I don't hold the fabric in place, look how it gets a little wonky. So I'm going to do this. I tension this way. I'm not sure how I learned how to do this. It was just something I felt comfortable with. I've seen some people do this, but you don't want to grip it too tight. I do this. I had someone at a seminar tell me, after seeing me do this, she said, "You must be a continental hand knitter." And I said, "I guess I am," based on that. I don't know why she said that, but anyway, this is how I tension. I have a corny little saying that I like to use for me to remember or to teach new people. I lock the lobster claws right here, and I push the butt of the needle with my thumb while I straighten out my tool, and I let the latch work for me. Now I have the stitch on my tool here near the handle. I'm going to lay the new yarn inside and pull through, and now I have one stitch on my tool. I'm going to go to the next one and lock the lobster claws like this. I push the needle butt back with my thumb while I'm tensioning the yarn. I hold the tool straight. Now I have two stitches on my tool down by the handle. I lay the new yarn inside and I pull through, letting the latch do the work. One of the reasons I'm holding the yarn, tensioning the yarn back here so it lays against the needle bed, is to keep the yarn, keep the finished bind offs near the sinker posts. Because when they're behind the sinker posts, it's holding the fabric in place. Now, if you're on a machine that doesn't have sinker posts, you can't do this. Advanced users of those machines sometimes pull needles out and use them to hold that fabric. I wouldn't recommend that if you're just learning a bind off. You can think about it later. If you don't have this sinker post situation, this fabric might start to curl up and touch your hand. That's okay, but I just prefer not to do that. So to review, I lock my lobster claws here. I push this back while I straighten out my tool. See how everything is perpendicular here? I have two stitches behind the tool. By the way, if this loop gets too loopy, I can pull it a bit to tension it. But I will tell you that if I'm stressed out or not paying attention, I have a tendency to bind off too tight. So sometimes I have to loosen it on purpose. Locking the lobster claws, pushing the needle butt back with my thumb. Tool is straight. See there, it didn't want to come off. Look at that. So I'm going to try it again. Lock the lobster claws. There. Let the latches do the work for you, because the yarn will close the latches. Now, I'm going to take the phone, and Carole is going to show a different method of binding off using a transfer tool. How are you going to switch this with my latch tool in there?
Well, I'll just hook it on right here like this. I'll just put it on like so. Put two of them on there. There we go.
Okay, so you wouldn't have to do that normally.
No. And notice how the weights and everything are here so that stays down no matter what method you use.
So even if you'd be doing something without a cast-on comb, like if you have a silver reed machine without a cast-on comb, you'd still want to have weight on while you do this. Okay, do you want to describe what you're doing?
Yes, I'm moving this stitch over, keeping my thread behind the sinker post. I'm now going to knit it off. so it's hanging up there and staying nice and even.
Would you have preferred that I not pull the needles all the way out for this bind off?
I don't know, whatever you wanted. It's okay.
Because it makes more sense to do it for the other bind off.
Yes, it does. It has to be done that way. Yep. Pulling it out, moving it over. We don't need to do that, do we? Now both stitches are behind the latch, so this one, it lays in front to knit off. There we go. Okay.
So let's talk about reasons why you might do one versus the other.
What does it show in the book, I wonder? This one.
Well, if you have an SK machine, a Silver Reed, Studio Singer, Knitmaster Empezzle, they all show you this bind off. But if you have the book that they used to call the Knitting Machine Bible, or if you have perhaps some of the other machines, it might show you the first bind off I did. I prefer the first bind off because that looks more like my E-wrap cast on. If I knit a square rectangle, if I knit a square or a rectangle, the bind off and the cast on look very similar. In this case, it might not. If you're knitting sweater pieces, that probably won't matter. I tend to do more knits for the home or art pieces, and so if I'm doing like a dishcloth or a wall hanging, I want the bind off and the cast on to look the same.
Now you see, I have to have this going around the sinker post so it stays put tight to the machine.
But if you don't have a sinker post, if you're on
okay,
an
then I'll show that. You go like this, leave that needle out, and wrap it around that. A little bit clumsy here. Whoop. Then after you go so far, you can remove it.
So you're using the needles as sinker posts?
I am using a needle as a sinker post. Exactly right.
So you wouldn't have to do this?
No.
Okay. Also, notice how she tensions the yarn in her hand, and it's different than the way I do it. Who's right? Am I right or are you right?
I'm right.
Well, so that's just one of those things that you do, you do it the way that feels right to you and that you're accustomed to.
I'm still trying to go over that, trying to use a needle for a sinker post.
It occurs to me that if you're on a LK150 mid-gauge machine, it'd be easier to use the needles as sinker posts because they're a little bit bigger and probably just easier to handle, easier to work with.
Yep.
Yeah. Let's wrap up this video though because it's getting a little long.
Yep. Okay.
So, okay.
Here's what they look like. Here's the nice ones that he did with the the latch tool. And here are the other ones. Okay.
Okay. There you go.